Major General the Hon.Edward James Montagu-Stuart-Wortley, CB, CMG, DSO, MVO was a general of the King's Royal Rifle Corps that served the British Army from 1877 to 1919. He saw extensive active service in many fields, including Afghanistan, South Africa, Egypt, Turkey, Malta, Sudan, France and Ireland. During the First World War he was controversially dismissed after the Battle of the Somme due to the failure of his division's diversionary attack. Early life. Wortley was born on the 31st of July 1857, the second son of Francis Dudley Montagu-Stuart-Wortley, grandson of John Stuart-Wortley Mackenzie, 2nd Baron Warncliffe and nephew of Edward Montagu-Stuart-Wortley Mackenzie, 1st Earl of Warncliffe. He attended Eton College from 1866 and gained a commission in the King's Royal Rifle Corps on the 13th of October 1877. Imperial Wars. In 1879, during the Second Anglo-Afghan War, he was the superintendent of army signalling for the Curragh Field Force. The First Boer War broke out in December 1880, with the Boer commandos in the Transvaal besieging British garrisons there. The governor of Natal, Sir George Pomeroy Colley, raised the Natal Field Force, in which Stuart-Wortley took part in the actions at Lame's Neck, Chur-Shugte and Majuba Hill. The following year he acted as a military secretary to General Valentine Baker, who at the time was in command of the Egyptian police and then, during the Anglo-Egyptian War, was aide-de-camp to Major General Sir Evelyn Wood. In 1884-85 he took part in the Nile expedition to relieve General Gordon, who was besieged in Khartoum. On the 17th of January 1885, their desert column of approximately 1,400 camel-borne troops was attacked at Abu Klea by a much larger force of approximately 13,000 Sudanese. The battle only lasted about 15 minutes and the attackers were repelled. After crossing the Bayuda Desert, some British officers, Stuart-Wortley among them, plus some indigenous troops, embarked on 2 Nile steamers and made a dash for Khartoum. They arrived there on the 28th of January 1885, 2 days after the town had been taken by the besiegers led by the Mahdi. Between 5,000 and 10,000 citizens of Khartoum had been massacred by the Mahdi's men, as well as most of the garrison, including Gordon. In 1885 he accompanied Tory politician Sir Henry Drummond Wolff to Constantinople as a military attaché. Later that year he was appointed as Deputy Assistant Adjutant General to Sir Francis Grenfell as he led his division at the Battle of Guinness. After attending Staff College, Camberley in 1889, he would become a brigade major serving in Malta from 1893 to 1896. He was promoted to the substantive rank of Major the 4th of April, 1894. Lord Kitchener led a second Nile campaign from 1896 where Wortley Stuart was second in command of a gunboat flotilla and later led a band of Arab irregulars who secured the east bank of the Nile in the Battle of Omdurman. For his services in this campaign he would receive a Companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George in 1896 and a Distinguished Service Order in 1897. During the Second Boer War, Wortley Stuart commanded a composite battalion of the King's Royal Rifles Corps and Rifle Brigade at the Battle of the Tugela Heights, assisting in the relief of Ladysmith. In July 1901, he received the promotion to lieutenant colonel, and was appointed a military attaché to Paris, a post he would hold for 3 years. In the summer of 1907, Kaiser Wilhelm rented Wortley Stuart's home Highcliffe Castle whilst he recovered from an acute throat trouble. In return for his hospitality, Edward was given 2 stained glass windows for the castle castle and invited to visit their German army's maneuvers at Alsace. The next year, he was then also rewarded with a second-class Order of the Red Eagle. Between 1908 to 1912 he commanded the 10th Infantry Brigade at Shorncliffe Army Camp and in 1914 became the commanding officer of the 46th Division, Territorial Force. First World War. On the 1st of June 1914, during World War I, Major General Montagu-Stuart-Wortley became GOC of the 46th Division, a Territorial Force division. In October 1915, the division saw action in France during the Battle of Loos when it made a costly attack against the Hohenzollern redoubt and Fossate. Wortley proposed a bombing attack, but was overruled and ordered to go ahead with a frontal attack by General Richard Haking. In the event, the attack was a disastrous failure and the division lost 180 officers and 3,583 men killed, wounded or missing. The action was described in the official history as a tragic waste of infantry. Wortley incurred Haig's displeasure by writing regularly to King George V about the activities of the 46th Division. This and a disagreement with Haking about the Hohenzollern redoubt attack left Wortley as a marked man against whom Haig conspired. At the time of the opening of the Somme, he was a few weeks short of his 59th birthday, but in ill health, suffering from sciatica. Despite his experience, he was past his fighting best, and his fitness for operational command was questionable. One officer later described him in 1916 as a worn-out man who never visited his front line and was incapable of inspiring any enthusiasm. Gomecourt. As part of Lieutenant General Sir Edmund Allenby's British Third Army, the 46th Division was involved in the diversionary attack on the Gomecourt salient on the first day of the Battle of the Somme, on the 1st of July 1916. The initial attack by the division, launched from trenches located at the village of Fonquevillers at 7:30 am, failed within a half an hour of its commencement with heavy casualties from enemy fire. Most of the division's troops seeking cover and becoming entrapped in its own assembly trench. Montagu-Stuart-Wortley was ordered to renew the attack at midday as the neighboring 56th Division, a fellow Territorial Force division, on its right had made good progress but was in need of support as it came under increasing counter-attack from numerically superior rallying German forces, besetting it on three sides simultaneously. Another British attack to the immediate south at Serre also having failed. The 46th Divisional Infantry Force by this time, however, had become incapable of doing this due to a chaotic situation in its own trenches, and was unable to seriously re-engage for the rest of the day. After continual failed attempts to organize a renewed attack by his troops throughout the morning and early afternoon, it was clear to Montagu-Stuart-Wortley that there was no prospect of success, but at 3:30 p.m., under pressure from senior command's exhortations, he ordered a token effort to be made by 2 rifle companies of men, only one platoon of 20 men actually going over the top on the receipt of the order, with only 2 men of it surviving the attempt unscathed. In the evening, the 56th Division was forced back out of the enemy trenches after 13 hours of continuous heavy fighting within the German position on its own, having sustained very heavy losses, sealing the defeat of the overall operation at Gomecourt. Thus the 46th Division's attack failed completely, and it further had the distinction of suffering the lowest casualties in 2,455 killed, wounded and missing of 13 British divisions engaged that day. It was subsequently judged responsible for the failure of the Gomecourt action in having left its fellow territorials from London to fight alone in an impossible tactical situation, and was thereafter dogged by a reputation for being a poor-quality military formation, a reputation that it would not come out from under the shadow of until its spectacular victory in the crossing of the St. Quentin Canal in 1918. Reporting on the attack after its failure, 7th Corps Commander, Lieutenant General Thomas Doyle Snow, stated in official correspondence, "The 46th Division showed a lack of offensive spirit. I can only attribute this to the fact that its commander, Major General the Hon.E.J. Montagu-Stuart-Wortley, is not of an age, neither has he the constitution, to allow him to be as much among his men in the front lines as is necessary to imbue all ranks with confidence and spirit." General Snow ordered a court of inquiry on the 4th of July 1916 into the actions of the 46th Division during the attack. But before it delivered its findings, General Haig, as Commander-in-Chief, ordered Montagu-Stuart-Wortley to leave the field and return to England. Given that Montagu-Stuart-Wortley's orders prior to the attack had been to occupy the ground that is won by the artillery, his dismissal remains a subject of controversy. According to Alan MacDonald, the division and its general were made scapegoats for the failure of a fatally flawed concept dreamt up by higher authority, the diversionary attack at Gombecourt. Later life. Upon his return home he was appointed to the backwater command of the 65th Division in Ireland until March 1919. He retired from the British Army on the 31st of July 1919. Post-war, Wortley made several protests to His Majesty's government about the perceived injustice that he had suffered at its hands, particularly with regard to not having received the customary honours issued to commanders of divisional rank in the war, but to no avail. He died the 19th of March 1934 at age 76. Personal life. Edward married Violet Hunter Guthrie on the 5th of February 1891. She was the daughter of James Alexander Guthrie, 4th Baron of Craigie, and her sister Rose Eleanor Guthrie was married to General the Hunter Cecil Edward Bingham. They had two children, Major Nicholas Roth of Say Stuart-Wortley and Elizabeth Valletta Montagu-Stuart-Wortley. Edward's older brother, the Hunter Francis Montagu-Stuart-Wortley Mackenzie, succeeded to the earldom of Warncliffe, and his younger brother, the Hon. Sir Alan Richard Montagu-Stuart-Wortley KCMGDSOKCB, became a lieutenant general in the British Army, serving throughout World War I.